If you're still transcribing verses from this to this, have I got a tool for you? In all seriousness, if you're watching this video, it's because you're using the Logos 7 software system. You're probably not transcribing your passages from your paper Bible into your sermon or your study notes. In the previous video, I showed you the beginnings of how to use the Copy Bible Verses tool. And in this video, I want to go much deeper, showing how you can customize the styles to fit your purposes. So let's get going. When you're using a versified resource such as this NIV Bible over here, your Copy Bible Verses tool will link to the current verse that you're sitting on. So for example, if we hit Control-Alt-B, we bring it up, you see because we're resting on Amos 5:14. If I move down to here and do the same tool again, you see that he moves over to 5:16. Another thing that you may want to do is copy multiple verses all at once. Let's say your sermon topic is justice, and so you want to use Amos 5:14. We'll put that in here. You type it in. If you follow that with a comma, you can add another verse or multiple verses after that. So let's say Micah 6:8. Type that in. Shabam. Then you get both of them there. When you copy and paste, that's going to both of those verses into your sermon notes, onto a PowerPoint, whatever it is you want to use those verses for. In nearly everything that I've showed you thus far, we have copy and pasted the verses into a Word document, so study notes or your sermon manuscript. But that's not the only place that you can place these verses. We are accustomed to leaving Microsoft Word or your word processor in there, copy and paste, and then we see the result there in our Word document. But we're not limited to just Word. If you drop this little drop-down arrow right here, you can see all of the destinations that this can go to. So let's say you're making PowerPoint slides for tomorrow's sermon. You click on PowerPoint as your destination, copy and paste, and we see that you've got all of your text laid out. Maybe not exactly the way that you want it. Maybe blow it up a little bigger so everybody can see it all the way back to the back of the auditorium, but you get the idea, so you can place it in there. Another thing that you might do is you may be in charge of creating your church's newsletter or a newsletter about something else, and you may use Publisher. Let's put it in Publisher as a destination. Copy and paste. And away we go. We see that it is located right here. It's placed a text box that, again, you can select and you can format and you can do whatever it is that you need to do with that text. The other option, if you use Logos' software, is to place it in Proclaim. Proclaim is a worship presentation software program, and although I don't have it loaded on this computer, it would work much like PowerPoint would. You would take your verse or verses and send them over to your worship program so that whoever is running tech for your service can simply go to that slide and put your verse up on the screen. A third option is to select Other. Now you'll notice that copy and paste gets grayed out here because all it's going to do is copy this. If you want to copy it to a straight text document, you've copied it there, pasted it there. So you've got a lot of ways that you can grab a formatted verse and place it into some other document straight out of Logos software. We've been using a single style today to show how we copy the data from Logos over into either a document or your presentation software or wherever it is you want to use it. But style plays an important part in how you perceive the material, and that is how you want it to show up on your overhead if you're using it for a sermon, or how you want it to appear in your sermon notes so that you can see where it came from and what the Bible was, and all of the important bits and pieces of the Bible reading that you're using. To determine the style, we go back, and we mentioned this in the first video, but we come back here and you see all the different ways of laying out your data here. We've been using the fully formatted style, which is this, but that may not be exactly what you want to see when you're working with these verses. For example, if we click here and we take one verse per line, I bet you can't guess what we're going to get. This is useful for study. This is useful also if you're reading in public. The oration style is similar. We'll click up here, right here. So if you're going to be reading in public and you want to be able to quickly refer to a verse, or you want to be able to enunciate each verse or break those verses up, this is a good way of printing that data out. If you were copying your data for study, one of the things you might want to include are the footnotes. That is a reference to the Bible version that you're using, and those notes, those verse and word and cross-reference notes that show up on the side of your Bible or show up down the center column. And that's right here, fully formatted with footnotes. We lay it out here. We don't see a lot right now because we're just seeing the letters there. Copy and paste this over to a document, and we bring Word up. Now we see something a little bit different. First of all, we see that the whole thing came out of the NIV, gives us all the copyright data. But then as we go back, we can see like love and see what the cross references are. Nehemiah 9. Okay, so you can go back here and follow these cross references up as you're studying. You can use them as part of your discussion. There's a lot that you can do there. If you find out that none of the built-in styles that come with Logos fit your needs here, one of the great things you can do is create a new style. And that's what we're going to cover next. Creating your own styles isn't hard, but you need to understand the structure of the copy versus formatting instructions before you start playing with them. We drop this down. You see this button right here. This is how we get started. The nice part of developing styles is that you can modify a style in real time and immediately see the results of your changes. So when we click on Make a New Style, we get into the Style Editor. And this is where we're going to make our modifications right up in here. Now this is a reasonably simple style, but it gives us a way to see what we're working with. Verse formatting styles have 3 or 4 divisions within them and different sets of instructions for each one. At the top, right here, are the global formatting options. These are instructions that affect everything in the style. In this example that we're looking at, the 2 instructions at the top that begin with the % sign are global instructions. So if we were to affect either one of those, it would change everything that we see down in the formatted copy. The next group or division in the options pertain to the header of your copied text. If you don't want the chapter or any other headings in your text, this is where you can remove them or add them or change them. Now let me show you something. When we are working with this, one of the nice things we can do is we can use the internal copy and paste instructions to experiment to see what's going to happen. So if we want to remove this, we just type Control X, which cuts it out. And you see that immediately down here, the style has changed. If we put it back, Control V, we put it back and we get our header. So we can see that that is what is modifying this little part of the copied text right there. The grouping that follows that are the instructions that govern how the verses or passages appear in your copied text. You want to remove the verse numbers or make them appear on a single line? This is where you would do that. This is where you would format the actual Bible content of what you're copying. Finally, there's something that we don't see in this example, and that is a final section that controls how any footer that you might want to use, the formatting instructions would appear here, and it would go down in this bottom section here. You might have a question right about now, where do I find all these mysterious codes and all these bracketed instructions? Well, I'm glad you asked. If you click on the Logos help icon right up in here. You click there and ask for Logos Software Help. And you come over here when it appears and click Copy Bible Verses. You'll be taken to the Logos Wiki page and given instructions really on how to build your styles, how to use styles. But what you're really interested in are these nice tables of all of the available styles that you can use to develop how your verses look in particular. So for example, we were talking about those bracketed instructions. Well, here's an entire list and it shows you what it's going to look like. So version, you're going to get the Bible version right there. Same way down here. We'll talk about these in just one second. And it shows you, kind of walks you through how you can get to different ways of styling your text. Now when we come back over here, there's one more thing that you may or may not have noticed. These little HTML type tags. Inside the diamond operator, we've got a P and then a /P over here. So that is format things in paragraph style. If we wanted this, say, to be in bold, we would be, and then come over here. And because we only want it to apply to the heading, /B there, close that. And now you see that our heading is in bold, whereas it wasn't before. So taking all of these instructions from the global to the header to the content to the footer and modifying them to create exactly what you want allows you to take a style and make it your own. Make it specifically the way that you want it to show up either in your document, on your PowerPoint, or even in Proclaim. To wrap up, let's build a style from scratch. I'm going to highlight the Lord's Prayer and work with that text as we prepare to copy it. So we'll get all the way through that. That's all selected. Well, let's say the first thing we want to do is remove this sea of red from our copied version. I'm going to clear all of these instructions out so that we have nothing down there. And we're starting from absolute scratch. Because we've removed all the instructions out of there, we don't even have any text so that we can see the effects of our changes. So I'm going to go ahead and put the verse instruction back in. So for each verse, and let's just grab the verse text. Boom. Okay, so now we have at least the text of the verse showing up. It's not formatted very nicely, but again, maybe that's what we want. So going back up here to the top, let's remove the red from our instructions. We do that by giving a global command, so that all starts with a %, and then no red letter. And look what that does. It turns it to black right away. Then we want our paragraphs to show up so that our text is formatted a little more like the NIV text. So we give that an instruction. Use Bible paragraphs. Now that didn't change anything. And the reason is that the editor is very particular about how you type in the commands. They must be formatted in a recognizable way. So I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to type it correctly. So uppercase use, uppercase Bible, can't type, Bible, and paragraphs. Golly, my typing teacher would be embarrassed. Now you see once it gets that global instruction that our formatting is coming a little closer to what we would see in the NIV. Finally, let's give one more global instruction. We want all the text that the NIV has, including the verse numbers, cross-references, and whatever else the editors have placed in there. For that, we add one more global instruction, and that is %, copy all text. Now we've got our verses, we've got some global formatting applied here. Let's add a header just for fun so that when we copy this over either to Word or PowerPoint or whatever, that we have something that makes it nicer for the reader here. Let's add the verses and the Bible version. This makes a nice clean header for whoever's going to be using the document. We start by typing the header instruction. So that gives the editor the chance to know that we're talking about the instructions all the way up until the verse instructions apply only to the headers here. And since we're covering a number of verses, we're going to use the full passage reference. So we put a square bracket, full passage reference, REF, close that off, and you see that you get Matthew 6:9 through 13, everything that's selected. And I'm going to put a couple of spaces. You can put literal things in here. Maybe instead of spaces, we want a nice dash there. And then we'll put the version. And that gives us a nice header. We'll need another space just to make it look really pretty right there. And then we've got the passage and the Bible that it came out of. In our next set of instructions, of course, are the verses. We know that for each verse we want at least the text, and in this case we've got all the numbers. Now, the replacement tokens, or the instructions that we have placed in the header and in the footer in the previous example, they're not limited to those sections of the document. We can use those to format things within our verses as well. Let's say we want a little bit more detail and modify the way each verse number appears. We can modify our verse by verse instructions by going like this. Let's say that we want the chapter number, chapter num, in a square bracket, and then put a colon, and then the verse number, the way that you and I would normally see chapter and verse references. Whoops, we need a square bracket always, verse num, and let me throw a couple spaces in there to make it a little more readable. Now you see what we get down here. We get 6:9, 6:10, 6:11, 6:12, 6:13. This really helps when the passage that you're copying crosses over chapter boundaries so that you can keep track of what's going on. Another thing that we can do, if you remember, is we can add those tags as far as the style, bold, underline, italics. Let's do this. Let's make our chapter numbers be in bold. So our open, gosh, my typing skills need work today. Okay, so open B. Now that's going to apply until it finds the closing tag, which is a /B. So let's go right here to the verse numbers. Now you see that our chapter verse combination, that's the only thing that's bolded. Let's add one more modification here just to liven things up. A paragraph break can be applied to each verse so that each verse gets its own line. We start with the paragraph tag, P inside the diamond operator. You can already see the effect there. Now instead of doing that just on the chapter number, we're going to surround everything with that tag instruction. So /P, close diamond operator, and now you can see that it has divided things up. That'd be really nice if somebody was going to read it. It makes it easier to see. So you can see real quickly how we build up a style. If you want to save this style, make sure that you come up here and you click Save, and it's going to be unnamed. You can give it a new name after you do it here. You'll click here. Okay, so now it's there. Let's click that and call this My Style. And there you go. Now you've got your own style. Anytime you want to apply that to any of the text, all you got to do, copy Bible verses, select the style, go down to your style, select it, and shabam. Everything is exactly the way that you want it. Chances are you'll use the pre-formatted style commands in the Copy Bible Verses tool the majority of the time. But isn't it nice to know that you have the option to make things exactly the way that you want them? As always, my hope is that these videos are helpful to you in your study of God's Word and your ministry to a world that is desperately in need of hope. My prayer goes with them, that you will grow deeper in your love for the Word and for the Lord. If you find these videos helpful, please consider giving them a like and subscribing by clicking on the logo down in the left-hand corner or hitting the subscribe button. Let your friends in ministry know about the channel as well. In the comments below, let me know what you like or don't like about the videos so that I can serve you better. If you have some topics or some things you'd like me to cover before I get to them, let me know in the comments as well. I look forward to hearing from you. May God richly bless you, my friends.